This video is about the post-traumatic stress cycle of re-traumatization to give you a better understanding of your recovery process. This video explains the different reactions people may have during TRE by using the polyvagal theory concept. We start at the baseline, which is social engagement, where things are calm and peaceful. However, naturally, the sympathetic nervous system is going to get activated as we become more frustrated, irritated, anxious, or anger around certain experiences that we have in life. This will cause us to either have the flight response or the fight response. However, if neither of those help us to survive the threat, we will then go into what is considered flooding, which is high intense emotions of panic, rage, terror, fear, hatred, etc. If none of those are effective to help us reduce the threat, then we will go into an immobility response, which includes freezing, numbing, dissociation, and fawning. This is the typical freeze or dissociative response. All of these unconscious defensive responses have both a psychological and somatic or physical expression. The living organism does not separate neurology from physiology. They function in unison. When safety is reintroduced, the human organism is neurophysiologically designed to disengage our defensive responses and return to our baseline. However, when we start to return to the baseline, we will come out of the dissociative response and we will re-experience the flooding. Recovery in many modalities sometimes result in a temporary increase in symptoms, even when this process is proceeding well. So people who are doing TRE may discover that they come out of a freezing or dissociative response and they start to feel anger or hatred or rage or defensive reactions, and they think that TRE is causing these emotions, where in fact TRE is helping them come out of the dissociative response. They're actually feeling these intense emotions because they are in the process of recovery. It does not feel comfortable, but it is progress, and it demonstrates that the tremor mechanism in TRE is actually bringing the person's nervous system back to baseline, but it has to go through that experience of flooding to get to the baseline. Now, in this temporary place of returning to the baseline, the flooding actually vacillates between overwhelming feelings and no feelings. And it continues to go like this as the person slowly starts to come through this process, because it may take several times before they actually resolve what's going on in terms of their numbing and dissociation or their overwhelming feelings. Now, this is actually called the post-traumatic stress cycle of re-traumatization. This is where the individual might feel suicidal ideation, lethargy, no energy, tiredness, depression, and they could feel those very intensely. Or they'll feel anger, aggression, terror, and anxiety, and they vacillate back and forth between those intense states. This is why suicidal ideation becomes a common result. The person is living with either no feelings or overwhelming feelings. So individuals should not feel worried when their emotions are disturbing and uncomfortable for them. It's actually a positive sign that they're coming out of the freeze or dissociation or the numbing response, and now they're coming back alive again. It's uncomfortable, but it is a natural stage that the human body and the human psyche goes through. It's at this point where the individual needs what we call co-regulation. That's where somebody who is calm and engaged and can help the individual ground themselves through this process so that they can get through it successfully. So after they get through that flooding or this post-traumatic cycle of re-traumatization, they can now self-regulate back down to their baseline. So the tremor mechanism in the body seems to be an integral part of discharging the specific myofascial tension patterns associated with the defensive responses of the body. So you can see from this, some people who do TRE and they tremor, their body becomes nice and calm because it takes them down to their social engagement state, which means basically they were already below the flooding line. So what's being discharged is everything below the flooding line, so they have a wonderful experience. If they come in above the flooding line or the dorsal vagal response or the immobility response, if they do TRE from there, they're going to have to come down and go through that flooding zone or that post-traumatic stress cycle of re-traumatization. That's uncomfortable, but when they get through that, then they can go back down to their social engagement line.